Hey everybody, this is Tom, otherwise known as Scary Spikes, and welcome to another Star Citizen video. Yes, that is an overtank behind me, but no, that's not what we're talking about today. Today I'll be taking you on a tour and a guide of the M2 Hercules Starlifter from Crusader Industries. This is the military variant with some perks and a couple of drawbacks which we will talk about, so make sure to stick around until the end of the video for that. If you prefer the C2 and would like to see a guide of that, make sure to go check that out. Link will be in the top right hand corner of the screen now. Before we get started with this video, a very quick shout out to my moderators, Gunslinger, Azrael, and Zanzi, in no particular order. Thank you all so very much from the bottom of my heart for doing everything that you do to make this community great, to help support what I do, and to help our fellow community members. I really appreciate your work, and I could not be doing this without you, so thank you all very, very much, and this video is dedicated to you. Also, make sure to join us on stream. We stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Twitch at 8 p.m. Eastern, and of course our Discord community, the links for which will be found in the description below. Finally, if you find this video helpful, it really helps me out if you like it to let me know. Subscribe if you're new, and ring the bell so that you never miss a video in the future. If you'd really like to support me, you can also check out sspgaming.com. That's where I make all of my merch, and yes, it's all handmade just for you with lots of love. It's the best way to support me, but also get something nice in return. That being said, thank you again so very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the video. Let's get started. One of the first things you'll notice on the subdeck or the cargo deck of the M2 is that the resemblance to the C2 is uncanny. There are a lot of similarities, and despite the fact that the M2 has technically less cargo space on paper, it appears to me at least, and correct me if you feel differently, that there's actually exactly the same amount of physical space available here, meaning that you can store quite a lot of stuff. And as you can see, between the two different cargo ramps on the front and the back of the ship, even with a Cyclone, a Nova, and an M50 Interceptor, we still have plenty of room here for very likely another tank and maybe a few additional Cyclones. Definitely a lot of extra firepower that can be utilized by your crew, which can be safely carried upstairs, but more on that in just a little bit. On the very front panel here, this should look very similar if you've seen my C2 video. We have an open and close button here, which will allow you to open and close the front ramp. We have a lock button that allows you to lock the front ramp, even from your party members, so that it cannot be accessed from outside. And we have this light panel here, which allows you to turn off the lights, turn on the auxiliary lights, and turn on the main lights, respectively. Moving towards the aft of the ship here, we notice that again, the layout is very similar to that of the C2. We don't have the light control panel as we do in the front, but we still have the lock button and the open and close button that will lower and retract the ramp on the back of the ship. Let's take the elevator up, and I'll show you what the second floor looks like, because the main deck of the ship on the M2 is really what differs from the C2. And in my opinion, I think it's better in most ways. As you may already know, the M2 is the military variant of the Hercules Starlifter lineup. Of course, the A2 being the assault version and the C2 being the civilian version. Between the C2 and the M2, though, the first differences are here. This is the aux crew area, which replaces the crew rest area from the C2. As you can see here, we have a number of jump seats that are secured so that you can have any number of 12 crew here sitting in a secure place while they're being transported. This is both a safe place for the crew, but also very comfortable and allows them to remain stationary while the ship is in motion. And also they are able to make their way down to the main deck in order to crew the vehicles to respond to any emergency situations. Of course, we do also have a single restroom here and some storage for the crew. And of course, it does look a little bit different than the compartment that this replaces from the C2 variant. One of the other differences, of course, is the armory. This is where the crew can make sure to pick up all their weapons to get ready for an operation, and you'll be able to store all of your crew's suits here for just about any situation that you may encounter. Over here, we also have a second weapons rack, which is really quite nice, and some additional storage on top. We also have a bench over here to relax while we are doing our crew briefing before any of the major operations that we'll be set out on. I really like the armory, and I think that actually in the recent patch it has been fixed, because there was an issue there where if you were in the armory you would actually fall out of the ship. But it looks like that's been addressed. Now moving towards the rear of the ship here, we'll notice and of course spend a little bit less time than the C2 video to see that there's really not too many differences here. We still have this central spar with the 2 bridges. We still have the 2 reactors or power sources here in the back with a number of different components surrounding it. So not too much of a difference there. Going into the habitation area, we'll notice some similarities and a few differences. Notably that there are 3 beds here now instead of 2. We have another washroom over here and another one on the other side, totaling 3 restrooms, which is actually quite nice, because if 2 of the restrooms are currently occupied by 2 of the crew members, the 3rd crew member can simply put on some pajamas and run over to the other side of the ship where there is a 3rd washroom available for them to use. Other than that, this space is pretty much identical to that of the C2, so not much more to see here. Moving back to the main deck here, we can see that again, the forward section of the main deck has a very striking resemblance to the C2, of course with the exception of when we enter the area that leads to the bridge. Now this area is very similar. There are components and areas that you can kind of discover by opening these panels over here. And if we move a little bit more forward, you'll notice that there are a number of additional panels over here that you can open up. And personally, I really like that there's this much level of interactivity with all of the panels in different areas of the ship. If you look in the C2 video, we were able to open some of the areas on the central spar there on the second deck, and that allows you to put things into storage and see a number of different components and doodads there. So that is really cool that you're able to interact with the ship so well. These look like escape pods over here. They're very different from the compartments that we saw in the next to the armory in the Aux crew area. Those lighted compartments are designed for suits. These, however, are designed as escape pods. Although at the moment they don't look particularly comfortable, but I'm sure this is maybe something that's going to be worked on in the future, or at least I hope so, because I really wouldn't want to be jettisoned out of an M2 Starlifter in one of these things. It just kind of looks a little bit dangerous and possibly deadly in the worst of circumstances. But in any case, we've got 8 of them here, which is actually quite nice. And perhaps maybe we can have 2 people in one of them, although they look like they're a bit of a tight fit, and looks like it's only actually going to fit 1 person. So given the fact that we have 3 crew on the ship as well as 12 people in the Aux crew area, that might make it a little bit difficult, but I'm sure that's something that we'll end up sorting out down the road. Making your way into the cockpit, again, there's a lot of different things that you can interact with here. This is one of them here. I'm not really quite sure what this is, so if you know, please let me know in the comment section below. One of the really cool things that I enjoy about the C2 and now the M2 is that you can actually close these doors manually, and then you can lock them. This is really cool because it disables the actual sensor over here that triggers whenever you walk close to the door, and it makes it so that you can seal yourself and your friends inside the cockpit here and operate the ship unimpeded. It also means that just in case you get boarded, there's nothing that the criminals are going to be able to do, except for maybe do some damage to the interior, maybe pose a threat to some of your crewmates if they're unarmed, which of course they won't be because they're on a military-based ship. And of course, they could possibly also just take some of the vehicles downstairs if those doors are not locked as well. But this is just really a nice feature and something that I wish that more ships had, because of course we do have our share of trolls and other people that find pleasure in giving other people a hard time in the verse. Of course, we'll also have legitimate gameplay loops in the future where piracy will definitely be a thing. So this will be very, very helpful, and I'm really glad to see this here. Okay, so let's talk about the bridge, because again, if you've seen the C2 video, it's a little bit different than what you would expect there. This is, of course, as I've mentioned before, the military version of the ship. So you have a seat for the pilot here, who has access to the pilot-controlled weapons, which are a pair of size 5 weapons. Then, of course, you have the co-pilot seat. The co-pilot does have access to the same controlled remote turrets that the C2 has. And there's also an additional turret that we can have a gunner control here, again through a remote turret connection through this seat. and this panel over here. We'll talk about the weapons in just a little bit, but let's first have a seat and have a look around the inside of the cockpit to give you an idea of what things look like. I kind of like the fact that these seats move forward like this, but at the same time, I wish that they maybe traveled half as far and there was more things put into this cockpit, because I feel like with Crusader ships, there always tends to be a bit of a waste of space here and there. It seems like it's almost a pattern that they follow, and you know, they have a lot of big open spaces in their ships, but I feel like in some cases that space can be better utilized. That being said, it can be forgiven a little bit more on a ship of this size because space seems to be the name of the game when it comes to the Starlifter. That being said, we have a number of MFDs here, so this is a little bit redundant. I usually like to switch this over to my comms panel. There we go. And then we can have a look. So we have 1, 2, 3, and a total of 4 MFDs available for the pilot. And then we've got 1 and 2, and I believe that is it, and 3. So 3 MFDs available for the co-pilot, 4 for the pilot, and of course we have 1 for the gunner in the back on that console, controlling that one remote turret that we get in addition to all the other stuff that you would see on the C2. What's really cool is that there's been a radar added here too as well, and it's in a central location, so you can see it just as easily as the co-pilot can. And once we have different things like operator modes available, then that is definitely going to assist the co-pilot in helping you manage the ship. So that is definitely really helpful. One of the other things that I really like too is that CIG has started to make physical buttons. Now, all of these don't necessarily do what they say on paper at the moment, but they will be introduced in the future, because why wouldn't they? It basically just shows you what they do, and some of those features, again, like the screens off, doesn't work at the moment, but there are other things such as open and close exterior which do work, and it's just really nice to see that this is the trend that these ships are taking. Again, it seems to be a pattern from the Crusader ships, and I really like this. I also like the way that they are lit up like this. It kind of reminds me of an Airbus a little bit. Let's go ahead and exit the ship, and we'll do a quick exterior tour because we haven't done that quite yet. So we're here at Hangar 4 at Everest Harbor, and we're going to be having a look at the outside of the M2 Hercules Starlifter. The M2 is very similar on the outside to that of the C2, with one notable exception: this front turret on the chin of the M2 Hercules Starlifter. This is going to be a size 4 turret, so a pair of size 4 weapons. Right now we've got the CF447 laser repeaters on the front, and I really like the addition of this turret. This is what's going to be accessible to the gunner on the inside of the cockpit, just behind the captain's seat at the panel there, with a remote connection to this turret. And it's really nice to have this in addition for the military variant, but the only gripe that I have is that this is your front cargo bay door, and it could have been moved a little bit more forward. Right around here it would have been perfect, and the reason for this is because the ship is so gargantuan that not only can you fit a number of different ground vehicles in it, but as you can see there, we have an M50 Interceptor, which is of course a spacecraft. And because we have something that can fly out of here and then land back in, it would just be nice to have a little bit more clearing, a little bit more space between the opening of the front cargo ramp and this turret here. So if we had it actually right off the top here, this would actually would look nicer, in my opinion. It would look actually a little bit better. I think also functionally it would be better too, because being closer to the edge of the chin there would give it a little bit more movement, a little bit more sort of field of view with respect to being able to look up a little bit more than it currently is, as it's restricted by the actual chin of the ship. So I think that would actually be really cool if we were able to get it to be moved up here, have those guns kind of hanging off the edge of the ship, make it look a little bit more badass, and at the same time giving a little bit more space for any spacecraft that want to land or take off from the inside of the hangar here using the front cargo bay door. That being said, the rest of the ship is pretty much on par with the C2. The landing gear, the thrusters, and the location of the VTOL thrusters here is all the same. Again, the only big difference functionally is the armor. The armor is definitely much improved on the M2 over the C2 because it is the military variant, so it is likely for this to be taken more into hostile territory where it is very likely to be shot at. So having that extra protection is also very nice, and as a result, functionally, at least on paper, it does lose a little bit of cargo capacity compared to the C2. I'll have some details down below, and you can click on the link to take you to the Hercules Games site for this, with all of my recommendations on how to outfit it as well. And that'll give you a little bit of an idea as to what the differences are between the C2 and the M2 variants. That being said, there are 2 additional turrets here. We can't see the other one. Actually, we can see it right there. It's on the top, sort of towards the back of the ship. And then, of course, we see another turret back here. These are also size 4 turrets with 2 size 4 guns. And on this particular model, I have the CF447 Rhino laser repeaters. Guessing you could probably see a bit of a pattern at this point. They are a favorite of mine. They do some great damage. They have some really fantastic range, especially with some inertia, meaning if you're moving forward, you can expect anywhere between 4.6 to 5 kilometers worth of range, sometimes even more than that. So really good range on that, and especially the fact that you've got a pair of size 5 Galdrines on here as well, which are pilot controlled, and those are on the top of the ship facing forward. That really gives this ship a lot of firepower and able to hold its own in a firefight, even though I wouldn't really recommend going out and bounty hunting with this thing. But, you know, having a ship like this that is capable of transporting, you know, spaceships and ground vehicles into sort of a hostile area and be able to stay on grid and provide fire support, I think that is really a valuable role that many organizations will benefit from. And also the fact that you have a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of size 4 weapons out there, and you can choose to change up these turrets to a playstyle that would fit to your own personal playstyle or to that of your organization. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you found it helpful, you can let me know and help me out by leaving a like, subscribing if you're new, and ringing the bell to never miss a video in the future as I post videos weekly. Also, feel free to join us on stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays over on Twitch at 8 p.m. Eastern, as well as our Discord community, the links for which will be posted in the description below. Also, please make sure to check out sspgaming.com. That is the best way that you can support me, as it allows you to pick up some really cool merch that's handmade with love just for you, and it also helps me to support what I do, as well as to help support my family. I really appreciate you making it all the way to the end, and again, thank you so very much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.